Hi, and welcome to part 15 of my Python Programming for Beginners tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be looking at Python and reading in and writing to files. This will include appending to files as well, but this will not include how to delete files, as that does require importing a module. And we really haven't seen that feature yet, so we are just going to do reading and writing to files. So what I've done here is let me just zoom in real quick so you guys can see. I've created this README text file, which has this is the first line, this is the second line, and this is the third line. This is the file. Oops, let me just bring this in here so you guys can actually see it. So this is the file that we're going to be reading in, and then we are going to be appending to this file. And we're also going to be creating a whole new file with the write function. So let's go ahead and let's actually get started here. So let me just zoom back out here so you guys can see the entire screen. And what we're going to first do is we're going to create a variable. And I'm going to create that variable called file. And we are going to set that to open and then open and close parentheses. Now this will take two arguments. The first argument is the file. Now, you can put the whole path to the file. If the file is in the directory that your script is running in, you only have to put in the file name. So that's what we're going to do is we're just going to put in the file name, but I'm also going to do a read from a file on my desktop, just so you guys can see how that works. And then the second argument is going to be a string, which is either going to be R, W, or A, and you can also add a T or a B after those letters to describe it if it's a text file or a binary file. So let's actually take a look and let's do that together here. So let's do readme.text. Then in the second argument, we're going to do R. Now the other option is RT for read text, RB for binary, which would be mostly if you're reading in like an image file or something. The other option is W for write. And this is actually not going to append to a file. Now this is going to rewrite the entire file. So if you have something in that file that you do want to keep, you're going to want to use the A. And this will automatically append to the end of the file. And again, the W and the A also come with the T and the B options for text and binary. So let's open up the file with R because the T is just assumed. It's a default value. And then what we can do is we can do a print file.read. And then what we're going to want to make sure that we do is we're going to want to make sure that we close the file. So we're going to do file.close. So then what we're going to do is we can run this here. So here we can actually see this is the first line, this is the second line, this is the third line. So it does print out the whole document. Now, what if you wanted to loop through each line and maybe do some processing or some searching on each line? In that case, you would change this print file.read for a for loop, which is going to be for line in file.readLines, colon, and then print line. And then just to show you guys that it does print off each line separately, I'm just going to add a test string here, and you guys will be able to see what this looks like. All right, so here we are. So we actually do have, this is the first line test string. This is the second line test string. This is the third line test string. Now you're going to notice these empty lines here. This is because of the carriage return in the text file. And we're going to see how we can put carriage returns in our writes and our appends. You can also do like tabs. All those are doable with some simple character encoding in the string. So that is the two ways that I would really recommend reading in files. There is one other way which takes in a specified length that you want to read in. So if we do print file.read and then we do 7, for example, and we run this, it's going to print off this is. Now, if we count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. The space is 5, 6, 7. That basically prints off the amount of characters that you put into this parentheses here. So if you know exactly how many characters you want to load in, this is great. I mostly see the use for the other two options, which I'm just, again, just going to put it out here so you guys can see them one last time here before we move on to the right. So for line in file.read lines. Now, one thing to note about the read option here. So I'm just going to run this because we actually have the read and then read lines. What we're going to see is it only prints off the file one time. We see that this is the first line, this is the second line, this is the third line, and that's really it. We don't actually have anything else that prints off. So we would expect it to print off twice. But once you do a file read, it's at the end of the file. So you would actually have to go back to the beginning of the file in order to read the lines again. So it keeps track in this file variable of where you are every time that you read a line. And you can actually even do, so if we actually just do this, we can do file dot read line. And if we did this, this will only read in the first line. And then it puts the spaces here, just as kind of like a new line character, basically. So there we are. That's how you really read in from a text file in Python. So let's go ahead and let's actually put this file into append mode. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do file dot write, or you can do write lines. So we're going to look at both of these options here. So let's do write. And then what we're going to do is we are going to do a carriage return, which is going to be /n, /t will be a tab. So let's do an n here. And we are going to do, this is written by Python. All right, so let me just go see the file here. So let me just zoom in for you guys so you guys can see what's going on. And let's go into the programming Python tutorials. And in the README, we can actually see the line here. So that's awesome. So what would happen if we did another line, just like that here? So let me just close this. And let's open up the file again. So here we can see when we left out that new line character, it just appended it right to the end of the file. So you're definitely going to want to make sure if you're writing out files and you want it to be on a different line, to use that new line /n. Usually you would probably do it after. I just knew that I didn't have a carriage return at the end of my text file. But this is what you would write here. And then let's actually see if we change this to a W, and we're just going to do a readme -test.txt file. And if we run this, we actually see, oh, let me just zoom out here for you guys, just so you guys can see what I did. So I changed here to a write option. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the readme -text.txt. And then we are going to do this is written by Python. So let's just run that here. And let's just zoom in here and we can see the readme -test here. And we can see that it only has the one line and then the readme is left untouched. But let's actually do, let me just zoom out here. If we do the readme.txt and we just say, oops, now this will completely replace the text in that text file here. We go into our files And let me just zoom in here. And if we open up the README, we only get our oops because the W completely overwrites that file. So you definitely want to be very, very careful um, with this W here. Let me just zoom out here again. You're definitely going to want to be really, really careful with this W because it will overwrite any files that you have there under this name. So if you don't want to overwrite it, make sure that you do the A for the append. And if you only need to read the file, make sure that you always open it with just the R, and then you can read in that file. And that is pretty much the basics here. So there is one last one that I wanted to show you guys, which is the write lines, which I believe is quite useful. So the write lines takes in an array, or a list, I should say, and it's a list of strings. So what you could do is you could put a string here called test, and then test2, and then test3. And then if I do this, and then we open up the file once again, we can actually see that it does put it all on one line. So the write lines does still need that carriage return, but it will work just like the write line feature, and the formatting is still expected to be the same. You do need to put your carriage returns at the end of the line to go on to a new line. And let's take a look at one last thing here that we can do, which is going to be to read a file from the desktop. So let's just create a text document here, and I'm going to call it test. And we're just going to do this is from the desktop. All right, so we have our file from the desktop here. So let me just shift right click, copy as path here. And then we are going to go into our Visual Studio Code. And let's go ahead and let's paste that in here. And we are going to do a R for read. And we are going to do file.read. And we are going to wrap that in a print statement. And one thing to note is when you have all these slashes, you will need to do, I believe it's double slashes here. I believe. I could be wrong. Let's test this out here. All right, perfect. So it did work. So because slash is an escape character, that's how you make new lines in strings. In Python, you do have to do a double slash for your path strings if you are doing a full path. So here I'm going into C users, my username, desktop, and then test.text. We are opening the file as read, and we get that this is from the desktop. And you can do the same thing for writing and appending. You can do it from anywhere, but like I said, if you just want to do directly from your directory that you're in right now, simply this. Otherwise, you will need the full path to read it from anywhere. And that's really it for writing and reading files with Python. In the next video, we're going to be looking at some other cool methods in Python for finding and counting. And then we're going to be looking at how to modulize the code, basically putting it into like multiple parts into functions and then putting all those functions together. And then we will look at the try and catch statements, or try and accept statements in this case. And then we're going to be looking at classes and objects, which is a huge thing in Python as well. So make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified when those videos come out. And I will see you on the next video.